What Mark and Ben, what I've asked them to talk about today is a little bit of case study, some practical implementations. Most of you are probably familiar with Mark, talking about status matching and things like that, and some other techniques and strategies and tactics, with customer engagement, particularly elite status members. But I've sort of asked for some practical examples today, and the guys have agreed to sort of talk through some of the things they've been working on, and I think Mark might have some stats and some interesting insights from some of the things that they've actually done as well. Some more practical stuff rather than sort of the high-level strategies that Mark and I usually kind of talk about. So, Mark, I'm going to give you the clicker because I think you have some show and tell, and I'm going to let you guys just chat away, and I might jump in with questions or if I think you need to kick up the you-know-where.
Awesome. So today I'm going to talk about my second favorite subject, elite status, and how I believe the travel industry is just at the beginning of the next $100 billion ancillary revenue stream comes out of the status. Typically, elite status, definitely in the travel industry, is a little under-monetized, under-commercialized at this stage. And obviously our company is on the forefront of helping major brands achieve these kinds of goals. You might have seen this kind of stat floating around. Top 5% of loyalty members generate almost 30% of airline revenue. These are the silver, gold, platinum, diamond type members. These people fly more, they spend more, they fly more than anyone else. They're typically in a high yield economy ticket, premium economy, business, first class. Up to about 85% of these have a co-brand credit card or a card where they can transfer points and miles into their favorite program of choice. They tend to book flights and hotels, close to the departure, which means if revenue management's doing a good job, it just costs more. These people as a group are your best customers. There's no one better. These people are also willing to spend more on almost everything. Couple of big stats here I want to talk about. These people are driven, they're not driven by price, they're not driven by, typically not by network, they're driven mostly by one thing, and that is status. They want to keep their status, they want to earn the status, they want to keep their status. And a lot of these people will do crazy things to retain their status, including myself, flying from Asia for this event because, I need to keep my gold with da-da-da-da, yeah? Most program managers think that status runs they're an outlier. They're not. It's actually most people. Most people will justify that extra trip, spending that extra $100, the extra $200, the extra annual fee on the credit card. There's some way in their minds they're justifying this to feel good. It's all about status. People, Ben, you would know this. People don't come up to you and say, "Hey, Ben, my name's John. I've got 200,000 points in my balance." They come up to you and say, "Hey, I'm a platinum member." Status drives everything. It's not the points and miles. Sorry, the two notes I want to talk to you is when people are downgraded by the airline or hotel. 52. We survey our member base every year. And last year, 52% said that if they were downgraded, even if it's their own fault for not flying and staying enough, that they would consider and look at other options. And those other options tend to transpire as they're trying to status match out. They're trying to look at something else. They'll go get a different credit card. And so there's a real opportunity that we believe for brands to really take advantage of people in this position that want to keep their status beyond sending the email, click here, pay $3,000 and keep your status. That's a very small opportunity. 35% of these people said that they would not fly their primary airline anymore if they were downgraded. This is a very high number because typically it's about 10% or so of people that are downgraded member base every year. So the fact that so many people said that they would stop flying the airline, stop flying the brand, again, represents, in our opinion, a major commercial opportunity for brands to monetize status in a new way that maybe hasn't been achieved in the past. Oops, can I go back? There we go. We know all this because we work with 27 different airline, hotel, retail brands. We work with a lot, including Flying Blue, Ben Flying Blue, Air France KLM. We run a bunch of different products. We are most well known for creating the modern status match. But we also have subscription products and a bunch of other things. I'm going to talk about the subscription product today. because this is such a big opportunity. Everyone is talking about co-brand credit cards and how much money there is in that. Far more in this. So this case study I'm going to talk to you today, it's a mini case study, is with a one world airline that we work with. I'm not going to name them, but I'm going to talk to you about some of the insights, some of the stats, some of the thought logic that has gone behind it for the airline and some of the outcomes that they've seen. This airline wanted the ultimate product. They wanted to put in very little effort. They didn't want to invest any money. They wanted a big return, both direct revenue and indirect. So direct revenue is cash that they get straight out of the product. Indirect is people buying flights that they otherwise wouldn't fly, or in a higher fare class than otherwise. They wanted it to be very easy, transparent for people to understand, and of course, we wanted them to look good. Everyone wanted to make money and win some awards, and we did. So, some considerations we had to think about is, with a subscription product, it's not linked to capacity you might have in a certain market. It's effectively unlimited scale. You can sell this as many times over and over and over and over, regardless of how big the size of the airline. Status, unlike miles, status doesn't cost the airline or hotel anything unless someone stays. And when they do stay, there's revenue attached to it. We were also conscious that other brands had tried loyalty subscription programs in the market with varying degrees of success. So we needed to make sure that this was head and shoulders above everything else and worked really well. Also, this airline being a One World member airline, there's restrictions on how status can be issued and the DRD, so we had to consider that to make sure it was all compliant with what they need to achieve. Between doing all that and having it live was about 30 days for the airline. We talk about roadmaps in airline loyalty being 6, 12, 24 months. This is not normal. A month is normal. Speed is where we should be, and to be frank, customers, passengers, they expect new things all the time. 30 days is normal, yeah? This subscription product has been running for about 10 months now, almost a year. 50% of people that subscribe to it were outside the home market for this airline. So these are, most airlines are pretty strong in their home market. They're not the number one in other markets. So the more help you can get in there, the better for everyone. This subscription product is pretty simple. It's you paid a quarterly fee, and you could choose between two sort of plans. One was you earn double tier points or triple tier points on all your flights with this airline, and you pay a fee for that privilege as well. So you pay a fee, high margin revenue into the airline, and you don't even get a benefit really until you can fly. So you've still got to go out and get your bum in the seat. Most people, 70%, subscribe to the second option, which works out about $800 a year. This product we benchmarked against other airline loyalty subscriptions, on average about 8.3 times more effective, more profitable on a per member basis than anything else out there. And we believe it's probably the most profitable one out there we've seen so far. And obviously it achieved both direct and indirect revenue for the airline. I'll give you just some ideas on the thought logic behind some things, because everyone's a bit iffy about subscriptions sometimes. Obviously, subscription revenue is high yield, high margin revenue. It's straight to the bottom line of the airline. This particular airline has about 5% operating margin. So if you're netting $800 a year out of someone, like that backs into about, you'd have to spend about $16,000 on tickets to get the same sort of profitability out of that customer. If someone's spending $16,000 a year, they're at least like a mid-level in your airline, and that's before they even fly. So this is fantastic income for the airline. There's a bunch of other benefits it has. People at the end of the year, there's no agony because folks can kind of plan a little bit more. I buy this, I earn triple tier miles, I'm more likely to be able to keep my status. And then the final slide I'll leave you on here is there's two major groups of people that tend to buy this. There's the folks that barely sort of scraping into the silver or the gold tier, and they're buying it as like an insurance plan. They're not sure if they'll be able to keep it the next year. They buy a status subscription that accelerates all they earn, so they comfortably retain their silver, their gold, and that is good for everyone. The other group is a bit of a protection mechanism where folks are maybe at the gold or the platinum type tier, and they're not sure how much flying they're going to do. They're not as regular as they otherwise might like to think, and so they buy this product as a way to kind of just lock it in the bank to make sure it's there. And people also spend up. So people that might be like no status or silver or gold, they buy it to think, you know what, if I do the current activity, if I do that extra flight, just the one or two, status run basically, I might hit the next tier up. And what happens at that point, suddenly someone's got a gold status when they're kind of at the silver level. What that means is they don't fly anyone else. They don't even shop anywhere. They're super loyal to this one brand, and you get 100% share of wallet. So this sort of has a lot of great benefits, and this is all around status, and this is just one of what we believe about 10 different things that airlines and hotels specifically can do to help commercialize status in the years coming. That's all I have today. So I think we, Mr. Feldman, are you here somewhere?
Let's hear from Ben.
All right.
I'm here for Mark, actually. Yeah. No, I think that's really interesting stuff that you showed, and one thing I think you also didn't mention was the distribution cost also goes down, because if somebody's super loyal, they're coming directly to your website. They're probably, of course, willing to pay more. They're less price sensitive, and they're not going to the Expedias or the other OTAs, which means that you're not paying commission as an airline. You're not paying commission. So not only do you get the direct revenue, which is, like you say, is high margin, you're saving your distribution costs. You have more willingness to pay, and you see the customers on this emotional loyalty, making irrational decisions, keeps them on the hamster wheel year after year, which is for us is exactly what we want.
But we all intuitively know people do things for status. Like
100%.
Irrational things as well.
So it's funny you mentioned this, and actually I'm going to go back to the panel that was before where they were talking about sustainability. And I was a bit disappointed that we weren't given at least an honorable mention. But one of the things that we introduced, and we were I think the first airline to do this, was where we gave tier miles, or XP in our case, for sustainable purchases. So SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, you can argue the legitimacy of that as a sustainable choice, but it is, at least for the moment, the biggest thing that airlines are really focusing on in Europe. We have minimum levels of SAF that we have to be including, et cetera, et cetera. So we introduced XP for SAF. And Qantas is out here giving miles for installing solar panels, right? So Qantas is not having to change anything about their planes. They're not changing anything about their fuel makeup. They're not changing anything about their efficiency. And yet they're getting all of this, greenwashing credit for, how great Qantas is. And not only that, but they're giving you miles, which you can then use to fly more on an airline that has made no changes to their sustainable footprint, right? And here we are as Flying Blue, where we introduced XP for sustainable purchases and also miles donations to our NGO partners, et cetera, where we're effectively putting our money where our mouth is by saying you effectively have to earn fewer XP by flying. So you have to fly less, and you're still able to get status if you contribute to SAF. And to bring this back to your point about the emotional loyalty, we saw an 800% increase in people buying SAF from one day to the next. It was a low base, let's be honest, but it was an 800% increase. And because people make irrational decisions, they say, I'm no longer going to go on that mileage run to Krakow 3 times in a day. I'm going to, buy SAF and get my status because I've made this contribution. I get my XP, which is really all I care about, and we get better quality revenue because we don't have to subsidize the 4 or the 5 segments that they're making on the mileage runs, and we get this direct income. So it for us it works really well. But again, you see, this is the emotional connection that people have to status, to their priority benefits, to their lounge access, et cetera, et cetera.
To be fair, they also free up a seat that you can then go sell to someone else.
100%.
You're double dipping as an airline.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how important do you think status is within an airline? I want to get on to this because there's most airlines co-brand, credit card, large teams, of people, finances looking and go, wow, we're making a lot of cash over here. And then typically what I've seen in airlines, people managing status, there's a lot less focus on it. And yet every piece of data I've seen is status is almost about double the value to the airline than points and miles are. And sometimes we see the status team, people doing status like 2 or 3 people. Like there's not much focus
That's
on
like
it.
us too.
Is yours as well?
Yeah, it's a small team.
Yeah, fix that.
No, but it's true. It's funny because, I mean, the airline will look at the cost of the status benefits. How much is our marginal cost when somebody goes into the lounge? What does it cost to have a dedicated counter for the priority customers? When we have, and this is a new one that we now have to deal with, airports, they want to move to silent departure halls. So they're going against the airlines to reduce the number of announcements that are made. So the more you have priority groups like priority boarding groups, it becomes a challenge operationally as well. And then you have less so in the U.S. because of the model of paid lounge access, but in Europe and in Asia where you have status-based lounge access, you have additional crowding, and so. But to me, I'm going, yes, that's a cost that you incur when someone chooses to fly you, right?
You're making money though.
You're making money.
Yeah.
You're making money from this customer who's coming to you. They're flying a lot with you, and this is a cost of doing business. This is why they're flying with you. And I think your stat there about people who say, I won't fly this airline anymore, or I won't stay in this hotel anymore if I'm a basic member, because I don't want to be treated like the hoi polloi. I want to feel like I'm the best customer. I want to feel like I'm special. I want to feel like I get something for my loyalty.
Let me just jump in on that one for a second. I mean, I think it's not just about wanting to be treated like the best customer. I think there's a fair point to say there's an enormous amount of friction in travel.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe there's a novelty when you very first earn elite status. Maybe if you're a McKinsey consultant on the company credit card at 22, great, it's a novelty. But for, it's a grind, especially in the US. I don't think anyone puts up their hand and says, oh yeah, I really want to get on a plane, despite Mark's commentary earlier. I think the point really is with a lot of the elite benefits, it's about removing those friction points in travel. If you suddenly don't have them, then it's just like, you know what? Not only is there no reason to stay at that brand anymore or stay with that brand anymore or you'll fly with that brand anymore, but, because I'm not being treated like a VIP, but I'm also just like, there's nothing. You're just giving me an aggravating experience. So it's not even neutral anymore. It's negative. I mean, I could just add that in and get your thoughts on that.
No, you're right. And I mean, look, I'm not going to defend some of the stressful experiences that people go through when they come to a crowded airport. And that's on us and our customer experience teams to try to reduce that. But look, I mean, someone said it before, but you look at fees for everything now. Whether it's baggage fees, it's you pay more for priority boarding, you pay more for food on board. And that's, yes, you could make the argument that this is a race to the bottom, et cetera, and that what's the difference between low cost and full service carriers? That's all true, but I would look at it a different way, which says that the demand for travel, the demand for well-priced or affordable travel has also skyrocketed. And so when someone can come in, you look at Ryanair, I mean, it's an airline that objectively is probably the most bare-bones airline in the world. They have the highest margin of any airline in the world. At 15%, mind you, which is like nothing from most other businesses. And so it shows you that there is a market and a model that works for people who are trying to, who are price sensitive. And then you have full service carriers who are held to a higher standard, rightfully or wrongfully. And so, for us, in order to be price competitive, we've had to start adopting some of these models. And again, it's not like we're making millions and millions in profit, at least not in Europe. The average operating margin is, 5-6%. So we've been forced to adopt these models and in order to stay competitive. And then that's where the status comes in, is people say, I get my free bag, I get my free seat, I get my, priority boarding. And that's where they start to feel, okay, it removes the friction. You feel like you're getting something for your loyalty, and it keeps them coming back for that reason. Because I think if you were to take that away, and they were all of a sudden be subject to the experience, where people who are perhaps more price sensitive and less loyal, they're not being treated like they're a loyal customer. I mean, that's the difference.
Follow on from that. Obviously, when we're talking about acquisition, for example, status matching campaigns, things like that, you've certainly been doing those. There's definitely opportunities in your home market right now. Particularly from when we think about SAS, for example. I know they're coming to your alliance, but nonetheless, there's upheaval. There's upheaval in the market. That gives an acquisition opportunity. But I wanted to just follow on from what you were just talking about in relation to talking about what you're doing about existing elite members. Mm-hmm. And I know you just sort of mentioned about retention and all the rest, but if I could just sort of get you to talk to some of the thought process that you've had as a program manager around the strategies you've been deploying to retain existing status members.
It's a good question, and it's an interesting one because you have, for example, when we launched Status Match, which was very successful, and we're very good with a good partner
Still
here.
successful.
It is still
Still
successful,
successful.
but you have some rumblings from existing members who say, well, these guys aren't loyal. Why are they getting the same benefits? And there, I think we say, look, we want them to come fly us, and I will unapologetically say that there's value in doing status matches. We're not status matching people who have no affiliation with an airline. There is some expectation that they're going to move the bulk of their travel to us. But like we just said, nobody wants to start at the beginning. You want to start already at a mid or high tier if that's what you're used to. But then it's on us, to say, okay, it's incumbent on us to say, how do we keep these members engaged, these members loyal? Because there are new members coming in, but we have to make sure the new members feel that there's value in the program. And when I came into Flying Blue a couple of years ago, there was barely a difference between our gold and platinum tier, for example. And rightfully or wrongfully, but what I noticed was that it was an extra mile per euro, and you got to pick your seat, further out. So what we said is, okay, well, this isn't enough because people will stop at mid-tier and then they'll fly someone else. Maybe they'll status match and then they'll split their travel. Well, I want all of their travel. I want their 100% share of wallet. And that's where we said, okay, well, if we can further differentiate the tiers and we offer more benefits at each level, more concrete benefits, more valuable benefits at each tier, then we start to say, okay, people value that incremental jump, and as a result, they'll stay loyal to us. They'll continue to fly with us. They'll get the co-brands that help them with their status, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what we've been able to do, is to better differentiate the tiers, better differentiate the benefits. I am a firm believer in offering high value, low cost benefits, things that don't cost us that much as an airline, but have huge value to the customer. And that for us has proven successful in the last few years.
What I'm hearing here is, because you launched the Ultimate tier this year, yeah? Last year.
So we launched Ultimate in 2018, but...
Formalized it.
Pardon me?
You formalized it.
We formalized it, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a key difference, because we launched our Ultimate tier, which is equivalent to On Circle at Lufthansa, at Gold Guest List at BA. For that, they travel minimum 3 times more than our Platinums. And not throwing anyone under the bus, but at the time we didn't communicate it because we didn't want Platinum members to feel bad, to know that all of a sudden they were number 2. And to me, I was like, this makes no sense, because why would you offer something that has a significant suite of benefits if you don't talk about it? No one's going to know. When we announced, some of the changes to the tier, we sent it to Ultimates and Platinums, and we got comments from Platinum saying, "What's Ultimate?" So how could we have a tier that is supposed to be for our top, customers, that has, again, very significant benefits that nobody knows about? So we formalized that this year, and again, that's been really successful, because all of a sudden these people understand, oh, there's a new target for me, there's a new goal, that I can reach.
It's funny, because what we know from just human behavior is especially males, we tend to seek status in everything that we do. We want the fast car, we want the nice watch, we want the, all this kind of stuff. And so when we hear about a new card that comes along, it's like, what can I do to get it? I heard a story years ago that when On Circle was launched with Marsmore, that there was a internal memo. It's like, no one is to get this for free. Not the CEO, not the chairman, no one gets this for free. And what that meant is that when the CEO goes to an event, and of course inevitably people come up and say, "Hey, can I get a free On Circle?" He could say, "Well, I'm not getting it for free, so you sure as heck ain't." And what it meant is, I had heard just people just started going crazy status runs, and these are not like 20-year-old kids go on status runs. These are grown men, 40, 50, 60 years old, and when they do a status run, they're not doing it in economy. Yep. They're like in first class across the Atlantic. $10,000 tickets, just to get this other thing over there, because status is kind of built into our DNA. We kind of seek it in everything that we do. So you probably saw the same thing when you guys formalized it. People are like, how do I get it? Like, what do I do? And they're there planning, oh, it's only $100,000 in extra tickets I need to buy. Is that it? I'll delay the next Ferrari coming to get this instead.
Yeah. Well, we see that because, we have, like our European peers, we have, a first-class cabin, which is not the most affordable cabin. And we have people who are, I would necessarily attribute them to status runs per se, but we do see that people are much more engaged, and our ultimate members who do book in La Première on Air France. I mean, there is that loyalty. There is that, they're willing to pay that 15,000 euros round trip between Paris and New York. That exists, and that's why they may pick us over a competitor.
We have just a couple of minutes left, but if it's okay with you guys, I want to see if there are any questions, maybe while we've got you on stage. One moment, Pavel. One moment. You have a question or a comment? Let's do questions first.
Thank you. Quick question, and thanks for the presentation. I wanted to ask, how did you determine the price point for the status subscription model? I mean, does it pay for itself? Did you get a pushback from the airline in terms of, hey, I'm going to get more elite members into my system? They're going to be using more of the benefits, so I need to pay off, right? So is there a balance between what you're charging and what you're getting back?
A couple of considerations there. One is what the market can afford. Not every country is the USA, so there's willingness to pay for certain things. We did a lot of data analysis with this airline, got all the data kind of figured out, what people are willing to pay based on tickets and credit cards and other factors there. And then kind of what felt right based on what else is out there, other subscriptions, other products, other stuff that exists. We looked at the operating margin of the airline and people that we thought might buy this thing, where do they kind of lay? What kind of tickets are they buying? Would we be cannibalizing any high margin tickets based on this? Turned out there's a very small cannibalization on it, but the upside is so much that you don't care about these few people over here. So it was a bit of a part art, part science, I will say.
What he said.
Pavel, do you want to...
No, I was just going to ask you when Air France, KLM, introduced those credits for SAF fuel purchase, because Qantas started the green tier in January of 22, and Etihad followed 2 months later, and there is this, a bit of an argument who was first. So it's good to have another entrant in this who invented the radio type competition, and I also just wanted to clarify that in Qantas you can pick 10,000 points or 50 status credits, so it's one or the other. It's more choice for the customer.
But it's a one-off, right, with Qantas?
No, it's a continued program. You need to requalify every year, I think. That's what you're asking.
Okay.
But anyway, it's just a kind of a anecdotal thing. We can talk about it a bit later, because it's very interesting to see more airlines. It's very good to hear that you guys also doing something, and apparently something quite successful. I just wanted really to ask you about that product placement in Emily in Paris, episode, when she didn't even fly Air France. She only went to the lounge, and the flight ended up being canceled.
Yeah.
But she kept talking about spa and this.
It wasn't due to mechanical issues, though. It was that actually wasn't a paid product placement, believe it or not. No, it was there, and there was another one they'd done, I think, last season, where there was a uniform selection scene, also not endorsed by Air France. No.
Any last questions? Otherwise, I'm sure you can buttonhole the fellas over lunch. But no. Any final comments?
No, I think, but just to say that I think you see, and what we see is very much that the emotional attachment to status works to. There's a significant revenue attachment behind that, which works for us.
Yeah, I'll just finish on what I started on. I believe this is the next big global ancillary revenue opportunity. I think airlines are really only just getting started. They're very in the early stages of this, so I think there's a lot of blue sky out there to sort of go for it. And we're helping Flying Blue achieve these goals, and that's kind of where we fit into the ecosystem here.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, fellas.